Mustafa Barghouti, who is the president of the Palestinian National Initiative and a member of the Palestinian Legislative Council. Mustafa Barghouti, thank you for your time. I'll ask you about the history in a moment, but because you're in Ramallah, how close do you think the occupied West Bank is to, let's say, exploding into an anger that will produce a collective and organized resistance to continuing Israeli raids rather than this sort of sporadic resistance?
Well, the West Bank has been resisting for the last 56 years, this Israeli illegal military occupation. What happened in Gaza on the 7th of October, and that is something that is usually ignored, was a reaction to what was happening in the West Bank, where the Israeli army had killed, by that time, 248 Palestinians, including 40 children, and where settlers were expanding settlements at an unprecedented rate and conducting terror against Palestinian communities, evicting 12 of them out of their homes, conducting practically ethnic cleansing. And it was the time when Israelis were trying to change the status of the Aqsa Mosque and attacking Muslim and Christian holy places. And that's when Netanyahu stood up in the United Nations and showed the map of Israel, annexing all of the West Bank and all of Gaza Strip, in addition to the Golan Heights. This provoked the reaction in Gaza. And at this moment, not only Gaza is subjected to terrible war crimes, including genocide, collective punishment, and ethnic cleansing, but West Bank also is affected by Israeli illegal settlers' terror and attacks on Palestinians. Since the 7th of October, as you said, we had lost 144 Palestinians. That means almost 400 Palestinians killed since the beginning of the year. And more than that, the whole West Bank is cut into pieces, 224 small ghettos separated from each other by 650 military checkpoints, and people are harassed everywhere. As you said, 2,000 more Palestinians were arrested, and that means we have 7,000 Palestinians already in Israeli jails, including no less than 200 children. And the world speaks only about Israeli hostages, but never mentions the 7,000 Palestinian hostages, many of whom are in jail without even charges, without knowing why they are in jail, and including 60 women and 200 children.
Just briefly, because we do want to talk about your take on the history that created the State of Israel. Just very briefly, Mustafa, and I think I know what your answer is going to be. We've talked about this before. How much faith do you have in Antony Blinken's latest trip?
None whatsoever. If Mr. Blinken cannot force Israel to send a drop of fuel to Gaza, then what can he do? But he doesn't want to do, not because he cannot do. He and his president are the only country in the world who can immediately force Israel to stop the atrocity and the massacres that are happening in Gaza.
How much were the victors of World War II responsible for what's happening right now?
Absolutely, totally responsible. Britain first, because they colonized Palestine, and under their mandate, they declared the Balfour Declaration, which made 10% of the population, which was the Jewish population at the time, that those will have a state, and the 90% of the population, the Palestinians, were deprived from that right. At that time, Jewish people only owned 2% of the land, and Palestinians owned 98% of the land. And the Balfour Declaration was the foundation of the settler colonial system that we are subjected to in Palestine. And not only settler colonial system that forced 70% of the Palestinian people out of their land in 1948 through 52 massacres, and no less than the destruction of 520 Palestinian communities, but also an occupation of the rest of Palestine in 1967 and conducting the longest occupation in modern history. United States, Britain, and some other countries have been the main supporters of Israel during all this course of time. And of course, they share the responsibility for what's happening today, and especially for obstructing any possibility for a peaceful resolution of this situation.
Mustafa Barghouti, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.